I'm Linda Quinlan.
I'm Keith Ghostland.
I'm Ann Charles. Welcome to All Things LGBTQ. Happy New Year. It's Thursday, January 3rd, and we have a lot of news for you in the new year. Starting with Linda.
Well, hi.
Hello there.
Well, I have a few things that I'm going to talk about, but for headlines, I have professional wrestler Anthony Bowens is gay. He originally came out as bisexual in 2017, but now sees his long-term future with men. Black men face profiling even on Grindr hookups. Wisconsin trans workers are now covered for surgery if they are state employees. The State Insurance Board has debated this issue for 2 years, but as of January 1st, surgery will be covered as well as hormones. And of course, that's probably because Scott Walker is gone.
Hear, hear.
Bye-bye.
Ricky Martin and Juan Yosef welcome a baby daughter, Lucia. Yosef is an artist and Martin is an international pop star. The couple already have twin sons, Valentino and Matteo, who are 10 years old. The United States Supreme Court and LGBT issues, which I'll go into more. Gay dating app supports GLAAD with chats for charity. Trans inmate who alleged abuse is being transferred to a female prison. Dion Strawberry Hampton she feels very happy to be transferred. Apple has pulled a religious app as being gay as a sickness, an addiction, and a sin. Liberty Ministries is a nonprofit that says it serves those who are seeking sexual relationship wholeness through a more intimate relationship with Jesus Christ. GOP blocks reappointment of the only LGBT commissioner, and In Between, the movie.
Really?
Which we will have a clip.
Ooh.
I
Get
know.
your popcorn ready.
Yeah.
So, the Canadian government, they've issued a travel advisory for LGBTQ tourists, specifically for the Bahamas. This is an area that is a crime-ridden area with lots of activities, but apparently the homophobic nature is one that they think people should look out for. New York City, as of this week, they have a non-binary option on their birth certificates, and to facilitate a change, you merely have to submit a notarized affidavit. You do not need a physician's statement. Bernie Sanders campaign, 2016. Life might not have been quite as good as we thought. There are allegations regarding sexual harassment and pay inequity coming out of some of the women's staff. Apparently, neither Bernie or their senior staff have been named. However, the excuse of I'm campaigning seems a little thin.
Is that enough? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're then going to talk about the legislature. They're back next week, and some of the things to be watching. And this week's trivia question. January 1992, out in the mountains, this was the lead story. It was the introduction of Senate Bill S-131, House Bill H-162, Act to Prohibit Discrimination on the Basis of Sexual Orientation. Identical bills, each chamber then looking at which one was more receptive and to push first. It was the Senate bill that ultimately got voted into law. The lead sponsor was Senator Walk of Rutland. House bill was a little more interesting. Lead sponsor was Representative Lugenbuehl of South Burlington, who enjoyed some minority status. What might that have been? And I've already told them, and yeah.
Well, I have news on several fronts, including New Zealand, where lesbian penguins are expecting a chick together. Pakistan passes, in May it passed a historic transgender rights bill, and Pakistan has just celebrated its first transgender pride parade, and I have a clip of that coming up. 2018 recap. News from Japan. 10 same-sex couples are going to sue the Japanese government over marriage equality. That's one bit of news. And the other is a lesbian couple is going to wed in 26 times abroad to encourage change in Japan. And I have a picture of them. They're university students, they're juniors. On the right is Misato Kawasaki, 21, and Mayu Otaki is on the left. She's 22, and they're going to travel abroad and get married in all these places to urge Japan to get going.
Seems a little excessive to me, but
Well,
okay.
it's exuberant.
It's a good way to travel.
Stories I'm probably not going to get to. Australian women celebrate their country's first same-sex marriage, and I have a picture of the brides. They are Nicola Koparnik and Daniela Payer, and they're kissing on the screen when you see it in celebration. J-Flag in Jamaica had their headquarters destroyed by fire. They're looking for the causes. It seems very suspicious to me.
J-Flag is alone.
Yeah, no kidding. J-Flag is the LGBTQ organization in Jamaica. And sad news, in Malaysia, another transgender woman was found murdered in a place called Kelang on New Year's Day. And I have a picture before you now of the unidentified victim. A lot of anti-LGBTQ violence in Malaysia, and a lot of it has taken place even this month. So the new year has been inaugurated by this murder of this unidentified woman. So those are my headlines.
Well, on to stories then. And America isn't all that different. Well, I mean, it is, but Facebook apologized for temporarily banning evangelist Franklin Graham because of a 2016 post about a North Carolina bathroom privacy bill. Facebook banned Graham for 24 hours in December after judging that he had violated its hate speech standards. A statement by a Facebook spokesman claimed that a company staffer had mistakenly dropped Graham from their platform.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yes, there's more, I know. Graham is the son of the famed evangelist Billy Graham. On Twitter, Franklin Graham wrote that his post had supposedly violated Facebook's community standards on hate speech. He added, Facebook is making and changing the rules. Community standards on hate speech. He added, Facebook is making changes and he doesn't appreciate it. And he wrote that he now repealed North Carolina House Bill 2, which required people to use restrooms conforming to their sex rather than alleged transgender status. Graham wrote in his original post on Facebook that a nation embracing sin and bowing at the feet of godless secularism and political correctness is hardly progress.
And so Facebook apologized for taking that off?
Yes, but they put it back. Facebook put it back.
So they took it off for 24 hours.
Right, and now it's back. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerman was a vocal opponent of House Bill 2. If you disagree with Facebook's position on sexual orientation, then you can be classified as hate speech or that you're a racist, Graham said. The preacher acknowledged that as a private corporation, Facebook can certainly do what they want, but said he hopes it will produce a new standard for content based on God's word. He stressed that he accepts Facebook's apology and something he also wrote on Facebook twice. He said, "The Bible is truth, and I hope they would look to the Bible and get some instruction from God's word." So he's back on Facebook.
So it's Mark Zuckerberg, right?
Yes. So,
An equivocal figure.
An
Yes.
evangelical Graham.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty.
Facebook, a lot of controversy about Facebook these days.
And now we have more of an uplifting story, which is the Rose Parade of 2019. And we have the first Jewish and LGBT Rose Queen named. She's the first queen with glasses, the first Jewish queen, and first LGBTQ queen. Rose Queen Louise Desler Siskel of San Marino admits her youth was more like Lord of the Flies than Disney. She never really imagined. She never really imagined being a princess or better yet a queen. But since starting her journey with the Tournament of Roses, she has seen how much the organization is more in line with her values than she realized. Rose entered on a sort of a whim, but as she continued to return for the interview rounds and throughout the whole process, she realized the value of the Tournament of Roses and the role it plays in her community. Each year, the tournament selects 7 young women for the royal court and gives them a real voice. For that, I feel very thankful, she said. Looking at Siskel's resume and her warm smile when she greets everyone, it's no surprise that she was chosen as the 101st Rose Queen. She is a member of the debate team and judicial committee at her high school, an independent day school in Pasadena, involved in YMCA youth and government, and has researched breast cancer under Dr. Sheila Pervin at the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine. So she's the first queen with glasses, the first Jewish queen, and the first LGBTQ queen. And I have a picture of her actually now. You can look. She's very cute with her glasses and all. So, okay, I think we'll move to local news.
Really?
Yes.
And it could be a queen with glasses.
Oh.
Collector. Yeah. So the legislature is back next week. Things we're going to be watching. Apparently, they have discovered over the summer the firearms bill. The Vermont State Police seemingly do not have the authority to run a background check for private sales.
You're kidding.
It can only be done by a federally licensed firearms dealer. So be looking for maybe some changes, and then remember there is the Remember Andrew about putting in place a waiting period on the purchase of a handgun. Some of the other things we're going to be looking at coming out of both the Senate and the House, I'm told, is ranked choice voting. That if neither candidate in a race receives 50% of the vote, that you will also have rated that, if it wasn't an overall, who you would want to place where. Maine is currently the only place that does this on a statewide basis, so we'll see what happens with that. Coming out of the Senate, they're proposing 4 constitutional amendments. One is expanding gubernatorial terms from 2 to 4 years.
I think that's a good idea.
And currently, Vermont and New Hampshire are the only place where it's only 2 years.
I mean, because you just get in, then you have to start campaigning right away.
And they're looking at a constitutional amendment to protect the access to abortion.
Good.
To remove all mentions of slavery.
Finally.
Apparently, there is a provision in there about children in indentured servitude, et cetera. And this is the one that really got my attention, the Equal Rights Amendment. It's not just going to be the Equal Rights Amendment. What they're looking at doing, and this is according to President Pro Tem Tim Ash, they're going to take all of the protected classes in Vermont statute and include them in the Equal Rights Amendment. So it will not just be gender, it will be sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, all of the protected classes that we have been adding over the years. Thank you and yes. Also, what we're going to be looking at is minimum wage, paid family leave, And then funding the clean water mandates. We have federal mandates that we need to meet. One of the most interesting
Oh, we
ideas.
still have federal ones?
This is pre-45, Lake Champlain. One of the more interesting proposals is to do a special license plate with CHAMP, and the proceeds go to the Clean Water Fund. So, and then what the Senate's saying is they're looking at for a priority as well is mental health. That every year we say we need to focus on and provide services. They're looking at how they can increase compensation for mental health clinicians. So
That's important.
that's
Yeah.
a quick sort of first look, and then I've got more that we'll go into.
That's a lot of business.
Oh, and that's not all of it. We haven't even gotten to my list yet. But you're going to tell me about penguins
Penguins.
that excite me.
We're going to go to Auckland, New Zealand, and meet Thelma and Louise. That's
Thelma
a-
and Louise.
Yeah, I'd like to show you a picture of them right now. They've been together 8 years. They're lesbian penguins, and they're expecting a chick together. They first met in Auckland's Kelly Taltron's Aquarium and bonded 8 years ago. They're a king penguin couple. They've stayed together ever since, despite each penguin couple usually calling it quits after one breeding season. So they've been going along for 8 years. And Thelma has miraculously laid an egg, according to News
I
Hub.
thought penguins all mated for life, no?
No.
That's pelicans.
I was okay.
Team leader Laura Seaman explained that Thelma must have mated with a male penguin, but Louise is taking care of the egg as her own. I guess there's debate about
We
paternity
think Jake
here.
stole it.
Nah, well,
We think they modeled after the boys and they snatched it from someone who was being neglectful.
well, they
Anyway.
really enjoy the egg. They want to breed, said this zoo attendant. Having the egg together is really good for their partnership as well. It's not the first time the older lesbian penguin couple has made headlines. Speaking of, fostering. Last year, Thelma and Louise adopted a chick after another penguin in the enclosure became a single mother when her partner left her.
The drama.
King penguins have to this is kind of intense. They have
Yeah.
to incubate that egg on their feet for 55 days, and I have a picture of them incubating on their feet with the chick that they adopted. Ebony Dwinell, who works at the aquarium, said they also have to shift their egg between partners every 2 to 3 days so that the other half of the couple can find the food to keep their strength up. The single penguin that they inherited the chick from, the original chick from, was unable to manage on her own, so employees gave her egg to Thelma and Louise. They absolutely love having a chick to take care of, the zoo attendant said. They're not able to have their own, so in fact, they can still raise a healthy chick, and that's amazing to them. And such a beautiful experience to share.
Aw.
I hope you enjoyed those 2 pictures. And I'll give you a progress
Is
on
there a
them.
chick picture?
Yeah, well, the second picture
Okay.
involves the
Hey,
original
baby.
chick. And they did say the paternity will be determined in May.
Okay. They're doing paternity testing?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
geez.
Somehow they'll figure out what happened.
Yeah.
So now I'd like to turn to a clip from Pakistan. And I'd like to remind you that in May, Pakistan's parliament passed a landmark bill on, that gives the country's transgender citizens fundamental rights. The Transgender Persons Protections of Rights Act allows people to choose their gender and also to have that identity recognized on official documents, including national IDs, passports, and driver's licenses. The bill prohibits discrimination in schools, at work, on public modes of transit, and while receiving medical care. The measure also says that transgender people cannot be deprived of the right to vote or run for office. It lays out their rights to inheritance in accordance with their chosen gender, and it obligates the government to establish protection centers and safe houses, along with separate prisons, jails, and places of confinement. So this happened in May, and today, well, this week, a celebration has occurred in the form of the first transgender pride parade in Lahore, Pakistan. And so I'm going to show you a clip of this celebration, and pay attention to the subtitles because some of the accents are kind of thick. But observe the revelry.
This is first time in 70 years history that we are celebrating our visibility and identity. मैं एक एक्टिविस्ट हूँ, एक आर्टिस्ट हूँ और वन ऑफ द की पर्सन जिन्होंने लॉ प्रेजेंट ये जो बिल पास हुआ है इसको प्रेजेंट किया था। ये उसकी सेलिब्रेशन के मौके पे आज 29 दिसंबर को हम इकट्ठे हुए हैं क्योंकि हमेशा ट्रांसजेंडर्स को रोते हुए, चीखते हुए, कंप्लेन करते हुए दिखाया जाता है। क्योंकि हमारा लॉ पास हुआ है तो आज हम सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं।
प्रेस क्लब से मलमरा की तरफ जा रहे हैं फॉर द प्राइड थिंग। और मैं इतने सालों से इतने बाहर के ममालिक की प्राइड अटेंड करती रही हूँ, बट पाकिस्तान में करने का कुछ अपना ही मज़ा है। वो फ्यूचर बहुत ब्राइट है मुझे लगता है। जिस तरह ट्रांसजेंडर एक्ट आया, इट्स वेरी कलरफुल, इट्स लाइक कि जो हम चाहते थे वो हुकूमत ने कर दिया हमारे लिए, बट अब उसको इम्प्लीमेंट कराना है और आने वाली नस्ल के लिए काम करना है और फ्यूचर बहुत ब्राइट है।
मैं हूँ ट्रांसजेंडर कम्युनिटी से, पर मैंने हमेशा औरतों पे जो जुल्म होता है उस पर भी आवाज़ उठाई है। बच्चियों के साथ जुल्म होता है उस पर मैंने बहुत आवाज़ उठाई है।
हमारा भी एजेंडा यही था कि इट्स नॉट ओनली ट्रांस प्राइड, हमारे साथ हमारे बहुत सारे कोलीग्स हैं जो ट्रांसजेंडर नहीं हैं लेकिन उनकी सपोर्ट है।
I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to see them enjoying in their own skin, which we don't let them do.
अपनी सॉलिडरिटी शो करने आए हैं ट्रांसजेंडर पीपल के साथ, क्योंकि हम ये समझते हैं कि जिस तरह किसी भी शहरी के हकूक़ हैं, ट्रांसजेंडर पीपल के भी उसी तरह से हकूक़ हैं। वो कोई एक्सक्लूसिव हकूक़ नहीं चाहते, वो इंक्लूसिव होना चाहते हैं।
आप देखेंगे कि वी आर नॉट लाइक अलोन एंड वी आर ऑल टुगेदर, एंड हमारे भी वही राइट्स हैं जो कि आम इंसानों के राइट हैं।
All right.
We like revelry.
Yes, we do.
Good news from Pakistan. Now I have a recap of 2018 in terms of LGBT concerns.
Do you want to wait and do that?
I can wait and do that,
Okay.
sure.
So,
We have the new
She may
20
be sitting over here, but we know who's in control. What you got?
we have
I
the new
have-
2019 harmony.
I just wanted to have a little discussion about the Supreme Court, which returns for its 2018-2019 term, and it's going to have it could be a very impactful year for LGBTQ Americans.
Yes.
Several petitions for the Supreme Court review have already been filed, and many other cases are already in federal appellate courts or far down the line in litigation process. So with so many LGBTQ Americans facing discrimination every year, this is a clear and urgent need for inclusive non-discrimination protections nationwide. If the Supreme Court agrees to hear any of these cases, there's no question that Americans from across the political spectrum, from all faith backgrounds, and from across the country will come together to urge the court to protect LGBTQ people from discrimination and mistreatment. One of the cases coming before the Supreme Court is about Bostock and Zarda, a case brought by the EEOC, argues that Amy Steffens, a transgender woman in Michigan, represented by the ACLU, was fired from her job as a funeral director because of her gender identity, and this discrimination violates Title IX of
The Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Civil Rights Act of 1960. Last year, a group of non-transgender students brought their own lawsuit attacking their Pennsylvania schools' trans-affirming policies. Their argument in the case, Doe versus Boortown, is that these affirming policies violate their own rights under Title IX of the Education Amendment of 1972. And then there's these shameful arguments have been slapped down in several courts. And in this case, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 3rd District Circuit issued a strong opinion in 2018, rejecting them and affirming the trial court's denial of a preliminary injunction against the school's policies. So those are a couple of cases. And another case is, about the military is another one, and businesses seeking a license to discriminate against LGBTQ people. Anti-LGBT activists are continuing their long, in the words, effect to divide the country with similar cases of business owners who wish to deny or turn away LGBT cases. So there's, the K case and
Flowers, wasn't it?
Flowers. There's a flower case, Master Pace Cake Shop decision.
Wasn't there something with a photographer?
Yes.
Yes.
Wedding photographer.
Wedding photographer. So all these cases are coming up, and I don't know if the Supreme Court will take all of these cases, but it's certainly something that we should all be watching, especially with our new justice sitting on them.
One of the things that will be interesting is looking at whatever is the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals decision, and if the Supreme Court chooses not to take the case on, is that federal court decision that holds as the law of the land.
Right.
So we actually may want them not to take some cases.
Oh, I don't want them
Absolutely.
to take any cases.
We may want it to
no.
stop there,
We
but
have to look at
Yeah.
the decisions.
But of course, the opposition is going to be trying to push to have the Supreme Court hear it, since they really feel they have a friend there. And
Several friends.
Huh?
Several friends.
Several friends. And I want to just show a clip of a movie called In Between. It was released in the United States, and it's about 3 young women who share an apartment in Tel Aviv, stuck between traditional and cultural and the modern world. And you can watch it on Amazon Prime. It will be up for an Academy Award. So let's watch that clip, shall we?
صباح الخير. صباح النور.
بيقدر يجي خطيبي لهون المساء؟ حبيبتي وين شايفة شالت للحريم فقط؟ جيبي من ما بدك.
وعليكم السلام نور.
صرت بتل أبيب؟
هسه فايت، شو العنوان؟
أهلك بيعرفوا إنك لزبية؟
لا ما اقدرش حبيبتي شرفي.
سلمى هذا وسام خطيبي. روح. وإيش بصير إذا أنا باكل اللي بدي إياه وبلبس اللي بدي إياه كمان؟
بتفكر حالك عايشة في أوروبا؟
لا ما اقدرش حبيبتي جربي. لا ما اقدرش وجينا يا ناس غالبنا.
زمان ما حسيتش قلبي. الحمد لله. الحمد لله.
شو زيهن فاجرات.
لا ما اقدرش.
شو العمل؟
peaceful demonstration.
Upbeat, wasn't it?
There you are.
Yes.
So, back to the legislature. Other things they're going to be looking at, and hold your breath, broadband access. Have we heard this before?
Not again. Wasn't that brought up like about 6 years ago?
Well, but what the House is looking at this a little different is they want to look at where the infrastructure is already in place to support it versus looking at this massive, how can we get it to everybody? So they're using a more tempered approach. They want to improve environmental protections, and this is directly in response to all the rollbacks that are happening on a federal level. You could have strip mining in your backyard.
Yeah.
They also they're looking at what they say strengthening families, access to child care, oh my, a novel concept, and early childhood education, and looking at improving the economy for average Vermonters, and that would be folded into the increase in the minimum wage. $15 an hour, and then the question is, by what year?
Is kindergarten part of Vermont's, you know, 'cause
K through 12.
Yeah, because some people don't have kindergarten as part of their school system.
They should, I believe.
Yeah.
This would sort of put that in
Okay,
place.
yeah.
The other thing we're looking at is the education financing.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things of interest that we're going to be looking at is because of a cut on the federal level for rural education, outright Vermont is losing money. So we're looking at, is the state going to be stepping up and looking at how they can replace the federal funds from education that are being lost, because there's more than just that one. And then the one that's probably going to get the most input, cannabis, tax and regulate. The Senate is ready to do it again, and apparently the House is ready to consider it. The question is, the governor is saying he wants a roadside testing provision to ensure that people are not driving under the influence.
Well, do they have those yet?
There is one that is out there that's a saliva-based, but I haven't seen any of the raw data research to really know the level of accuracy.
No other state is doing this.
Well,
and Massachusetts already passed it. Right?
Correct. But what they have done is trained officers on how they can do a roadside assessment the same as some of the physical testing for DUI. Are you able to do certain...
Yeah, but that's variable, those tactile tests. I think something chemical would be more reliable if they can come up with that.
Or a combination of both.
Yeah.
So, and what I failed to mention at the beginning for events, Momentum, this is for those of us over 40, they're meeting this coming Monday, January 7th, 6 p.m. at the Pride Center, and this is their planning meeting to look at how they're going to do outreach, what are the activities they're going to be offering. If you have any interest or suggestions, either plan on attending or send an email off to the Pride Center with your suggestions.
Well, I'm going to try to go.
So you could see
with a list.
With a
you
list.
could see Linda's smiling face, another incentive.
Okay, it's to you, speaking of incentives.
All right, I'm ready.
Highlights of 2018.
Correct. LGBT rights suffered setbacks, but gay sex is illegal in fewer countries, and more same-sex couples can marry than ever before. At the end of 2018, 25 countries recognized same-sex marriage, up from 24 a year ago. Meanwhile, gay sex remains illegal in 70 countries, down from 72 a year earlier. So these are modest gains. But let's talk about the advances. Gay sex was decriminalized. This was so exciting. I mean, we've reported on these stories. In the second most populous country, India, when the Supreme Court struck down the colonial era ban dating back 157 years on unnatural offenses. This happened in September, so that's a huge gain.
Yeah.
I keep saying it's not unnatural as long as you do it properly, but there we are.
Costa Rica LGBTQ plus couples won the right to marry in 2020 after the top court ruled in August that the country's ban on same-sex marriage was unconstitutional. And in addition, 4 decrees have occurred favoring favoring LGBTQ rights and protections. And I have a picture before you now of a signing ceremony for all those 4 decrees favoring LGBT rights. So you may observe that. Next year, Thai same-sex couples could be able to get civil partnerships, with a bill due to be considered by the country's cabinet before the end of 2018. If it passes, Thailand will top Taiwan to the post to become the first Asian country to legally recognize same-sex marriage. So that things are looking good in Thailand. In September, Hong Kong said it would grant dependent visas to spouses in same-sex relationships. The decision came 2 months after the city's top court ruled in a landmark judgment that a British lesbian could get a spousal visa. One more advance it occurs in Portugal, where transgender people are no longer need to get a diagnosis of mental illness to legally change their gender. After a law was passed in April that also banned medical surgery on intersex infants. Now I have to report some setbacks. Here are the setbacks. Cuba. Now, I haven't covered this, but here it is. It became the latest country to block same-sex marriage by removing all references from a draft constitution after months of heated debate and opposition from evangelical churches. Same-sex marriage.
They have those in a communist country? What is this?
I know.
What is the world coming to?
Well, you know, the right wing is
I know, but, you know,
making a
communists,
sweep
isn't their
around the
basis
world.
of, like, not religious?
Think of Cuba as just an extension of the Caribbean and the homophobic culture that underlies their social structure.
Remember they had quarantined AIDS patients?
Yep.
Same-sex marriage could still be included in Cuba's family code, which is due to be updated in 2019, but, you know, that's
doubtful.
Well, who knows? Equal marriage campaigners also experienced a setback in Taiwan, which we reported on, when voters endorsed the definition of marriage as between a man and a woman in a referendum in November. Step backward for Taiwan. And I've also talked about Tanzania on past shows. The regional commissioner of Dar es Salaam said gay people would be identified and arrested, which led to gay and transgender Tanzanians going into hiding. The government of President John Magufuli said it was not the official policy, but Denmark, to their credit, still withheld $10 million of aid over the comments, and the European Union said it was reviewing its relationship with the East African nation. And then we have to go to Indonesia. The LGBT plus community came under pressure, with police breaking up gatherings and stepping up arrests, often using the country's strict anti-pornography laws. In November, city passed a bylaw banning acts that are considered LGBT. And now I have a picture before you of Stephen Handoko, 25, who was sentenced to over 2 years after a raid of a gay sauna in which 140 people were detained in May. So he's in jail for over 2 years because of the nudity at this gay sauna. And all the heterosexual saunas and clubs in the area were not raided. So good news and bad news for 2019.
And you didn't even talk about the yo-yo that was Bermuda.
No kidding. No kidding.
So
to
now,
be continued.
Now we have trivia, don't we?
No, we have an
No, we have the interview.
Yes.
And then trivia.
Yes.
It's my great pleasure to talk about contra dancing with two activists, dancers, callers, and musicians.
Here they are.
All right. Hi, I'm here with Aaron Marcus and Dana Dwinell-Yardley, contra dancers. They have many hats in this movement. that will appear before you on the Chiron. Dana's a caller, Aaron's a musician, they're both dancers, and Dana is co-organizer of the Montpelier Contra Dance Group, so she can give us some local perspective. But I'd like to start with some basic questions, if I may, for our viewers who aren't schooled in these matters. What is contra dancing? And how'd you get involved with it?
Many things. Yeah,
How about you?
Contra dancing is a little bit like square dancing for those of you who may have done this in middle school or similarly, except it happens in long sets. So you and your partner will dance with another couple in a little group of 4, and then you'll move on to the next couple and dance up and down the whole set, doing similar moves similar to square dancing, turn by the right, turn by the left, do-si-do, swing, all those sorts of things. But it's very much you're dancing with the whole hall, the whole set. It's not just you and your partner or even you and your square of 8 people. It's really a whole, dancing with the whole room.
Uh-huh. And that's how it differs from square dancing, which is more partner-oriented.
More partner-oriented and more, you work with that square of 8 people. And in contra dance, you dance in this long set, which can have anywhere from 6 couples to, you know, at the festivals, there'll be hundreds down the line.
Yeah,
And
just to clarify, contra dancing and square dancing are both traditional New England dances. So if you went to a dance 100, 200 years ago, you probably would be doing multiple different formations of dances. Yeah. Some of them could be in squares and some of them would be in these long lines. So,
yeah.
And how did you each get involved with it?
I started going to the Montpelier Contra Dance when I was 17 years old. So that was a few years ago, more than a few years ago. And I started going because my 2 best friends went to the dance. We were one of a very small handful of people under the age of 40, honestly, but like very small handful of teenagers at the time at the Montpelier dance. And these 2 friends of mine, one lived 40 minutes in that direction and one lived 40 minutes in that direction, and I lived in Montpelier, so it was, hey, let's all come to the dance to see each other and dance. So really brought by friends, which I think is the way that 95% of people come to dances is, come do the fun thing with me.
Yes.
And then you continued, obviously.
Yeah, I loved it.
And Aaron, you started young too, right?
Yeah, even a little younger than that. I was actually, my first dancing was in the womb. My mom was dragged by friends, by Vermont friends, to a dance festival when she was pregnant with me. But I really actually started dancing when I was 5. That was when my parents would go contra dancing, and I told them that actually my brother and I both told them that we sort of revolted and said we wanted to dance too with all the adults and stop playing with our Legos on the side. So
that's great. Why is it important that it be gender-free, and what is the gender-free movement?
You should.
Wow. Okay.
You both are involved.
That's a really big question.
Yes.
So contra dancing often historically was done. There was often a men's line and a gentleman's line and a ladies' line, and it's there also has been a lot of gender-free dancing, but mostly among the queer and LGBTQI communities
of contra
that would
dancers.
feel sort of not really welcome at the regular dances. We're talking like 20, 30 years ago, and sort of formed some of their own gender-free groups.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can tell you is that to this day, I love going contra dancing. And whenever I bring queer or trans friends or non-binary friends contra dancing, I often get a similar result, which is a lot of my friends say, that was really fun, but the whole being called a gentleman or a lady just feels really weird. And just having those roles. And part of the issue really was that the original way, or the way that it was set up, was that one couple, one item equals one gentleman and one lady. So that whole concept, I don't really have to explain to queer viewers why that's a problem or why it makes a lot of queer people feel unwelcome.
Yeah.
So.
And there's been this really rich history that Aaron alluded to of gay and lesbian and queer communities having gender-free dances and getting it like, yes, a couple does not equal one man plus one woman, it can equal many other things. But in the mainstream contra community, as it were, in the last in the last 10 years, I think there's been a evolution toward a lot more freedom around roles. When I started dancing, I definitely felt like I had to dance the ladies' role because that was the body parts I came with. And now I think there's a lot more people dancing lots of different roles, like that don't necessarily match their gender. And I see contra dance becoming more intergenerational and more diverse in the last 10 years. I think some of those queer folks are sort of coming out of all kinds of closets and coming to regular contra dances. And so we're seeing this more different profusion of people. And so those role titles of gents and ladies start to feel more and more irrelevant as people are dancing many roles and having many different gender presentations.
So how does it work exactly? I have a friend who used to do it, and she said, you know, you're supposed to turn one way, and how do you know what way you're going to turn, and so forth. Can you talk about some nuts and bolts?
Well,
Dana happens to be a caller, so she would be a very good person to answer
I
this.
think dancers have equally good explanation capacity, but you're dancing with your partner, and there's two different roles. So traditionally, gents and ladies, the terms that are coming into popular use now for gender-free is larks and ravens, really because of the same syllable count and sort of the same sound, and also larks for left, people who end on the left after the swing, and ravens for right, the people who end on the right. So the roles are, like, people do a lot of the same moves, like a do-si-do looks the same no matter what role you're doing, and Alaman by the right looks the same. The swing is a move that is a little different for the two roles, and in any given dance, one role may be asked to do one thing while another role does something else. So gents or larks, Alaman by the right, while the ravens do this other thing. So the dance, you have to know which role you're doing in a typical contra dance.
And do other people have to know too, or, you know?
Yeah, you figure out with your partner. The caller will say, line up, check in with your partner, figure out who's dancing which role, you know, larks on the left, ravens on the right, proceed from there. But you can, some people swap midway, who are people who are clever, who are good dancers.
Yes, I've read that really improves your dancing, switching roles and so forth. Well, that's very good. Can you talk a little about the history? How long has the gender-free movement been going on, would you say?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's, it doesn't, well, I mean, I think one thing that's interesting that sometimes we lose in heterosexist histories of dance is that people have been dancing gender-free dances, not just contra dancing, way, way back. You know, we're talking about in previous centuries that, I mean, there's definitely, there's documentation of balls that people would go to in the cities, you know, that where men would be dancing with men and women would be dancing with women. And where a lot of, you know, where that was just sort of normal, you know, in that little subculture. And so this is not new and it's not untraditional, all of this. It's just sort of a little secret part of history that a lot of people weren't aware of. Going back to the 70s and 80s is really when gender-free contra dancing really, I guess, started to gain traction among the gay and lesbian community and trans community at the time. A lot of people came together and wanted to contra dance but just didn't feel entirely welcome at the regular dances, and so formed some of their own dances in Boston, New York, and also sort of independently on the West Coast. So all of these dance groups sort of formed independently and came up with their own gender-free terminologies all over the country. And it's really only in the last few years that we've all started talking to each other and said, let's standardize this and come up with one terminology across the continent. And that's actually what larks and ravens is. That's really gaining traction now.
Yes, you said it's having an impact on the larger contra dance community, right?
Yeah. This is a thing that I think switching to gender-free language benefits everybody. It's not, it totally benefits the people whose gender presentation doesn't match or who want to dance with a partner that is a similar gender to them, but it also benefits cisgender heterosexual folks who just want to dance the other role. I think it's sort of a slowly grading thing to be constantly called a lady if you don't think of yourself as a lady, or constantly called a gent if that's not who you are. So this is a thing that I think is freeing and liberating for folks of all gender presentations. And I think not all heterosexual dancers are necessarily on board with that or haven't experienced that yet. To the what happens when you untie gender from this dance experience.
But I will say I was blown away this summer when I started this conversation among a lot of our dance communities in central Vermont. I was really blown away by how many cis heterosexual dancers also felt similarly that, wow, yeah, I really want to do gender-free dancing too. I'm tired of these roles. So it really is, I think, a lot more universal than a lot of people realize, and a lot of people are understanding now how it benefits everyone.
Yeah.
Tell us, if you would, what's happening in central Vermont in terms of gender-free contra dancing.
Yeah, Aaron is the instigator, the grand instigator of let's make this happen.
Good for him.
But there are a lot of people involved now, which is great.
And so what's happening? What is it that you're all involved with?
So Central Vermont Dance is the Montpelier Contra Dance. There are a couple of smaller dances around, but Montpelier is the main one. There's 2 dance series in Burlington. And all 3 of these dance series are in the process of doing a trial of gender-free dance terms. This is something that for Montpelier, Aaron really brought to our attention this summer when they wrote a very lovely and impassioned email saying all of these reasons why gender-free dancing is important and statistics about trans folks having lower qualities of life and mental health issues and dance inclusivity, and it was just a very lovely email. And so then the committee was like, oh, we should think about this. So we've been in discussion about it over the summer and fall, and we've decided to have our 3 contra dances in the month of March be run as a trial using larks and ravens. It's really important to us that we involve our whole community in this conversation, that it isn't just a sort of top-down, organizers say, let's do the thing, but the dance belongs to the dancers. So we're gonna run it on those 3 dances. We're gonna ask for feedback. We'll have surveys. We really wanna hear what people think after having actually done it, because you kinda have to do it to decide what you think about it.
My next question then is, how do people get involved here in central Vermont and elsewhere?
Yeah.
Come to a dance.
Come
to
dancing.
it, and where do we find the information about the dances?
Yeah, the Montpelier Contra Dances happen on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Saturdays of every month. They start at 8 p.m. and they go to 11 p.m. There's a introductory session at 7:30, 7:45 for folks who've never done it before, and I encourage people to come to that if you haven't done it. The Montpelier dances are held at the Capital City Grange on Route 12 on the way to Northfield. So if you go to the Capital City Grange website, you can find more information about the upcoming dances. We also have a Facebook page.
Excellent.
Yeah, and so the ones in March are going to be the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Saturday in March.
It's a month with
are going to be the gender-free dances in March. And then the Burlington dances are on, there's one called Queen City Contras, which is on second Fridays of the month in Burlington, and you can look that up online, get their schedule. Then the Mad Robin Contra Dance is on 4th Fridays of the month, and you can also look up that schedule online. And both of those dances are also in the process of discussing switching to gender-free
I'm pretty sure that the Mad Robin dance is going to be February and April, March and April. You'll have to check exactly. Starting in February, there'll be some trial of larks and ravens. And
that's great news. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. We're getting around to publicizing it. February for sure. And the Queen City Contras, I think what they're doing is asking callers what terms they want to use and sort of sprinkling some hither and thither throughout the year. So that might be more of a stay tuned to Queen City Contras Facebook page as callers say which terms they want to call on that evening. So people are doing this trial all different kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Well, let us know and we'll announce it on the show.
Yeah, and there's one more dance. It's not contra dancing, but it's Scottish country dancing, which is kind of similar. It's maybe a little bit more. It's not exactly a performance. It's still a social dance like this, but it's a little more balletic and there's a little more technique to it, and it's also really fun. And the Scottish country dance in Burlington starting this month, starting on Monday actually, of the Mondays of January, is going to be switching to gender-free calls as well.
And where is that going to be?
It's at
Is it the Champlain Club?
Champlain Club.
Yeah.
Champlain Club in Burlington.
Well, in the 5 seconds, this is wonderful. In the 5 seconds we have left, well, give us some last words.
last words, contra dancing is great. It is so fun. It is all about shared joy, and I am super excited to make this be an even more joyful experience that even more people can share and feel good about.
Yeah.
Aaron?
It's a great way to meet people of different generations and just to connect with people, and what we try to create a safe space for people to really feel welcome, and you don't have to feel good at dancing to enjoy contra dancing. It's a social dance, it's fun, it's meant to be something everyone can do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for coming in. Get involved, everybody. They said if you don't know what you're doing, come along.
Come early and we'll teach you. So trivia. January 1992, House Bill H-162. Representative Lugenbuehl of South Burlington, lead sponsor, had a bit of a minority distinction. What that might have been? Not only was Representative Lugenbuehl one of the original sponsors when the anti-discrimination bill was initially introduced in 1987, she was a Republican. And with that,
I think we have to say, welcome Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House.
Yes!
And we have to say,
Resist.
resist.